Hello, friends. Hello, readers. Welcome to this History News Live. It's lovely to see so many of you. And as you can see, I am in front of a location. This photograph was sent to me by Steve. So, Steve, you're not allowed to say where I am, but other people can guess. And I will have a clue in a little bit of time if we haven't got anybody guessing. In the meanwhile, let me just tell you how this is going to run. Thank you for those who are joining live. If you are watching the playback, thank you for taking the time. Today we have got some updates, some repatriation news. We've got some new news. We've got some ding-dongs, including some actual news related to ding-dongs, not just people being ding-dongs. So that's it's been a while since we've had some actual ding-dongs on the show. And then we've got quite a few events and exhibitions. I think it's probably the most events and exhibitions that we've had for a while. Now, you will see as we go into the slideshow that there are going to be articles that are listed. They are numbered in the description box. And they are also going to be, that number will correspond with the number you're going to see on the bottom of the screen. Thank you to everybody who sent me articles. I will be doing a list of thank yous in a moment. I have also seen some articles coming in today. So if they are things we haven't talked about yet, they will make it into next month's news. In the meanwhile, let's do some hellos. Hello, Celtic Kitty. Thank you so much for joining. Steve, thank you for all of the images that you sent me. And particularly, as you can see, I've picked this one for today. Thank you very much. And hello. I'm going to think that you are perhaps, that's a Welsh name. So I'm going to pronounce it in the way I understand that the Welsh would pronounce it. So hello, Clue. Clue. I hope I've pronounced that right. And welcome to your first live. Pleased to have you here. Lily, thank you. Good afternoon to you. It's evening time for me. Shane, it's a time, I'll tell you, because Dominic is well into his food journey now. He's over 7 months. But today is the day that he has decided that despite the fact that he doesn't always like to stay sitting upright, he does sometimes enjoy just randomly keeling over, which is super fun. He forgets that the ground can be hard too, so that's always a shock for him. So you've got to try and desperately catch him. He's also decided, though, that he will only eat off of the spoon that he is holding. So dinner time today resulted in an immediate bath, and I realised that leaving that child in a shirt to eat was a mistake, because I don't think it's coming back from that. I don't know how it happened. I don't know. There was food in his ears. It's been long enough since my first that I'd forgotten what weaning a baby is like. Dear Lord, I was having some conniptions. So that's how it's going. Everything's sticky again. So there we are. But we're having a lovely time. Hello, Sid. Thank you for joining. Hello, Leona. Yes, going to have some good ones coming on. Prunella, hello. T-Bean, hello. Pistol Annie, hello, hello. La Serena, it's been we're only doing them once a month now, so it is hard to catch them. But thank you so much for making it down this time, and Deborah as well. Thank you very much for coming down. I am coping. It's we've had teeth come in, so it's all been fairly chaotic, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And Shane, you are quite correct. It's been the first day of warmth, and I'm still. The body temperature still hasn't quite regulated from having a baby. So at all times, just it's very hot for me. I don't think it's hot everywhere else, but I'm very warm. So yes, that's what's happening. Jennifer, yes, please do send a picture. That would be lovely. Kiwi, good morning to you. And Hannah, hello, hello. Evening from Dartmoor to you too, Stuart. Thank you very much. So seeing some. Yes, okay. So I'm just going to see if we've got anybody who's guessed if we've got the Yvonne, Dominic is 7.5 months. He's big though. He's long, and when he doesn't ever want to be put down, but he also wants to. When you're holding him, it's like fighting a bag of squirrels, angry squirrels. But when you sit him down or lay him down, it's like his body can't tell that there's a difference between being put down on a soft mattress and being airdropped into a war zone. He reacts in the same manner. So that's super fun. But the second you pick him up, he's there fine for a second, and then he's like, I'm going to push you with all of my limbs and my forehead. So it's a miracle I've not got a bloody nose, frankly. There we go. Oh, indeed it is. Well done. I believe that you're the first person I've seen to get it correct. Stephen did indeed take a trip to Eyam, and this is the church at Eyam. Inside, I'm not sure from which bit of it will be the window, which has got the Eyam stained glass window that I showed in my video. And after this, I'm going to remember to tag my video on Eyam and what happened there, the place that is known as, quote, the village of the damned. So yes, we will check it out. Just seeing some lovely comments coming in. Hello everybody. And yes, I am taking it all in. I am treasuring it. I am also enjoying treasuring the moments when everyone's asleep. When everyone's asleep and I can have a little lie down. I'm also treasuring those moments too. They are delightful. And it's very soon as well. I'm going to be going back out to work on a more regular basis. So changes are afoot. The Seattle Stitcher are live on your birthday. Happy birthday to you. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I have no idea of the time difference between here and Seattle. So happy birthday, morning, lunch, afternoon, evening. I hope it's a good one. If I was to move to my right, there, yes, it's just behind there. It's behind your comment, I believe. There you go. There's the grave. Yes, indeed. 12:30 in the afternoon. Happy lunch to you. I hope you're having a wonderful birthday lunch and that you have cake. And if not, get some cake. So then, let us, without further ado, hop in because we have got I've got many slides. And I did say in my last recorded video that went up, I did make the comment at the end that we talked for about an hour. And in the live chat, I was immediately called out for that deception that it's only going to be an hour. And as I pointed out, the best lies are the ones that we tell to ourselves. But let's try and make it not be 3 hours. Let's from the sublime to the ridicule. Let us hop in, friends, to there we are. Hello. Let's say some thank yous. People who sent me news items. I'm always so grateful when I see them. Thank you all for taking the time. Thank you, Snudpuckle. Thank you, Elverta, Yvonne, Cheryl, Zoe, Jessie, Beth, Shane, Alicia, my name twin cat, Kate, Liliana, and Becky. Thank you very much for taking the time. And we have, of course, I'm not a gambling woman, but are we all on Pope watch? I'm interested to see who is chosen in the conclave. I think it's from the candidates that have been. I mean, I know very little about organised religion. I'm going to be honest with you, but from the candidates that have been put forward, I'm not quite sure how they said who the front runners are. I mean, it's not like the Grand National. You don't get a list, presumably. unless you do. But I wonder, it's either going to be steadying the tiller, or it's going to be a sort of drawback from progression, or it's going to be full throttle progression. So we shall see. A video of the different popes in the early modern period. I can certainly look into it. It's the wider church is something that I've certainly looked into. But yeah, I can definitely have a look into the significance of popes. Mostly, of course, what the period that I studied, the Pope becomes significant because Henry falls out with him, Mary makes friends with him, and then he falls out with Elizabeth. So that's where it all comes from. My husband's just texted that different countries seem to have different favourites for the Pope job. And yes, it's this. What's so interesting is how international the runners and riders are. So there we go. Looking forward to seeing what happens with it. Right, let us hop into our first. We're going to start with the updates. Oh yeah, before we go, it is really hard not to root for somebody whose surname is Pizza Baller. Of course, the annoying thing is that when he becomes Pope, he'll presumably adopt a pontificate name, and we will lose the knowledge of Pizza Baller. Like when we had Cardinal Ratzinger, he was never known by that after he was Pope. And I feel like if your name's Pizza Baller, I mean, maybe he could be like Saint Mario or Saint Luigi. Have I just dive right into? It sounds like a Mario Kart name to me. But maybe that's because I know very little about Italian names and Mario Kart. But Pizza Baller is an excellent name. Brian's chiming in with Reginald Pole was robbed from Popedom. He was, I think, also Wolsey. Can you imagine if Henry had kept his powder dry, right, just long enough to sort of potentially try and force Wolsey into that top spot? Oh, what a different world it might have been. What a different world it might have been. So our first update is a ProPublica article. As always, the ProPublica articles are incredibly well researched, but they're also super long. So it's very hard to put anything onto a slide. And I recommend you check them out and read them. This is an update because you may recognize the image of this sculpture, because I believe it was last month we talked about it as being repatriated. ProPublica's on a deep dive, as they tend to do, and they have discovered, or they are pointing out, the fact that the Art Institute of Chicago has returned this sculpture, but in doing so, they have obscured the connection of it to a wealthy donor, which is, her name is Marilyn Alsdorf. And so this is an exploration of the way in which repatriation is, in some ways, arguably reputation cleansing, or can be used to reputation cleanse. Very worth checking out. And I suppose it then also begs the question of the next phase, or part of the phase maybe, of what we want from repatriation. Do we also, should repatriation include reconciliation? Does it need to? And if it doesn't, if it is done in this somewhat cloak and dagger way of obscuring who the donor is, who the person was that had this item in their possession, if it is repatriation without arguably real reconciliation, what does that mean? I don't think I can say either way how I feel. From my point of view, the most important thing is the repatriation happens. But I do think there's potentially a hollowness if we lose that part of the provenance, because ultimately this part of this item's history is being eroded, sanded down, tidied up in ways that I find concerning and perhaps somewhat unpleasant. Siobhan has pointed out that it does look a little bit like. Do you know what? I can definitely see the challah bread in there. That glistening plat. I can see where you're coming from there. I wonder what you think. Do you think that repatriation without this route to reconciliation is as valuable, or does there need to be reconciliation in there as well? Or am I just, gilding the lily, over-egging the pudding, if you will? Let's hop on. This was a previous ding dong. It's in here because the ding dong has got an update. I think, to be honest, calling them idiots is degrading to idiots, but these tomfooleries that are seen rolling boulders off of a rock formation in Nevada are apparently now facing up to a year in prison after a federal jury found them guilty on Wednesday. This was April the 10th, so many Wednesdays ago now. Their names: Wyatt Clifford Fain and Payden David Guy Cosber, who had climbed Lake Mead National Recreation Area's Redstone Dune on April 7th, 2024. They were filmed by another visitor who turned on their camera, presumably realizing that these clowns were about to do some nonsense, and they just started toppling one boulder after another for reasons unknown, because they're big boys who can do it. I don't know. They were convicted and deported, and they were convicted of injury and depredation of government property following a 2-day trial, and that means they can face a maximum penalty of a year in prison or a $100,000 fine, or potentially both. Do both. The defense attorney tried to say that Cosber didn't do anything illegal because he couldn't have known that pushing the rocks off the cliff was illegal. Okay, well, now you do. And the assistant US attorney argued that the men should have known that destroying the formations was illegal. They're arguing, what's knowledge? Everyone knows you can never murder someone, you can't steal, you can't break things that don't belong to you. Fair enough. So we're going to see, hopefully, what their sentence is. And I'm fingers crossed, it's both a year and a £100,000 fine for the pair of them. Debbie M, ignorance of the law is not a defence. Certainly, I mean, particularly if you are above the age of criminal responsibility. If you're above the age of criminal responsibility, then no, ignorance of the law is not a valid excuse. Absolutely not, as Marianne points out as well. Danny, I mean, do people just go around pushing rocks off cliffs at random? I haven't seen it myself. And I mean, here's the thing, even if it wasn't illegal to destroy the rock formation, you don't know the damage that you could do by pushing something heavy off of the thing that you're standing on, you absolute clown. I don't know how high up this is, but what if somebody's underneath you or walks underneath you? There's a reason why you can't throw pennies off the Empire State Building. There was in Westfield over here, which is one of the shopping centres. There are other shopping centres available. This happened in a Westfield. Some absolute, can't swear, finding it, other word, nincompoop. We'll go with nincompoop. Decided to pick up this like poof, heavy duty footstool. I mean, it was probably nearly a metre across, and chuck it off of, I think, either the first or second floor, but just down through. If that had hit somebody, it would have killed them instantly, without a shadow of a doubt. They were incredibly lucky that it didn't. And guess what? They got arrested for doing that, because it's depraved indifference to do something so absolutely foolish. Siobhan, if do you know what? If common sense could be made common again, that should be on a hat. Make common sense common again. Wild behaviour. Some good news. Some good news, though. The museum we talked about this previously. This is the from the Manchester Museum. They promised to return these dolls to an Aboriginal community, and that is they have kept this promise. So a museum has kept this promise to an Aboriginal community by letting children play with a set of painted shell dolls considered to be alive by the women who made them. They've been on display since the Manchester Museum, and they were donated by the Anindalikawa people, which is they're from an archipelago in Australia's Northern Territory. The condition of this gift is that the curator had to promise that once a year, these dolls, which represent family and ancestors, would be taken out from behind glass to allow children to interact with them. So these are beautiful figurines, handmade, and they were given to the museum in exchange, or maybe exchange. This is not how it's presented. It's probably not exchange. I think that's the wrong word for it. So I'm going to immediately take that back. These were given to the museum at the same time and after. I'm not drawing a connection there of reciprocity of gifting. That's because I think that's more capitalistic in understanding than this is actually supposed to be. But here's what the article says. I'm going to quote directly to avoid putting words in people's mouths. The figurines were specially made and handed to the museum after more than 170 artifacts held in its natural history collections were given back in 2023. So they are drawing a connection between the gifting of these dolls and the repatriation of artifacts, but they are not saying they were given in exchange for, and I think it would be wrong to potentially say that that was what happened. The artifacts that went back were things like painted and barbed spears, armbands, baskets, as well as dolls that were made hundreds of years ago. And those repatriations are ones that we looked at not last month, but I think it was perhaps the month before that we covered it. So this is, in some ways, it's replacing the things that have been rightfully repatriated, and this is something that we have talked about, that repatriation is a way to open up cross-cultural exchange in ways that are really, really interesting. And this, I think, is so interesting and so valuable to the community that got their items repatriated to them, but also to the museum who repatriated them, because now they have this living, touchable thing that's going to invigorate and interest children into coming to the museum, into looking into these histories. I think it's a win-win all around, personally. So next up, we have got an update on the Antikisser Mechanism, which we have covered in the news occasionally, but I've also made a video on it. And there have been some studies done, and apparently the thought process now is that the Antikisser Mechanism may in fact be a toy. This was thought to be the first computer in history, but it's now thought, following studies, that it may in fact have been an elaborate toy. Because by looking at the way in which the gears are configured, it seems to indicate that this mechanism wasn't functional and isn't functional. They thought that it was used to calculate the movements of the sun, the moon, other planets, and eclipses. But now they are questioning whether that's the case or not. So, quote, under our assumptions, the errors identified by Edmonds exceed the tolerable limits required to prevent failures. Consequently, either the mechanism never functioned or its actual errors were smaller than those reported by Edmonds. The new thing they found is that the calculations on both the gear teeth and the possible errors, including the variations of the spacing of the teeth and evidence of variations in gear rotation, are combined together for a more comprehensive simulated model of the device. And while there were previously ideas that it might not have been entirely accurate, the suggestion now is that it wouldn't actually have really functioned at all. They do point out there are plenty of caveats here. The researchers themselves admit their work is speculative. Only fragments of this mechanism survive. It was battered about, it's been underwater, there's been corrosion, all sorts of things. So there is educated guesswork going on for sure. And whatever is going on, we now have, they say, enough to question whether the Antikisser mechanism was actually a work of genius or just some ornate decoration. There are going to be future studies to look into it, but we should perhaps be cautious going forward in assuming that our measurements of fragments perfectly reflect their original values. There needs to be further research and the possible development of more refined techniques to better understand the true accuracy of the Antikisser mechanism, or indeed not. I think there were parts that were put back together and reworked, but a lot of it's going to have to have been on some sort of guesstimation because so many bits were missing. So it is a lot of work for a toy, but there are some very spoiled children. Equally, if it's just like bits and pieces chucked together to look shiny, then it could just be leftovers. So you have some nuts and bolts and screws, you have a backing, and you just put it together in a way that looks pretty. It could be that there was other mechanisms that were functioning, and these were leftovers, maybe broken bits that were put together because a child, maybe the workshop owner's child, wanted it. Quite what it's doing on a boat? Question mark. Because the reason why people thought it was a navigational tool is because of its location where it's found. Why is if this is a toy, why is it taking up space, albeit quite small space? Why is it taking up space on a boat? I mean, yeah, Marianne, is it found object art? It's an excellent question. Is it? I'm looking forward to more studies coming out to see what we learn. We have got a further update on the opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum, and I have linked this article on it because people have now had a look inside, and through this article you can also have a look inside. You may notice from the title that the world's most anticipated museum is finally open, well, mostly. So there is some caveat going on there, but it looks like there's a possibility that you can get access to the museum. Maybe. People have. And if you want to see what it looks like inside, go to link number 5 and you will see some lovely pictures that have been taken by the people who put together this article. Freddie talking about the Antikisser mechanism, probably a part of one of the machine loves speculation. And that's the thing, it could well have been. I mean, I think about, when you have something, for example, like bits of Lego or bits of Scalextrics or whatever else, or even more recently, a busy board. So 1,000 years from now, if somebody picks up a busy board where it's got various forms of lock and chain bolts, zips, keyholes, bells, whatever you might put onto a busy board, all of those individual parts, they make sense if you're giving them to a small child to keep them quiet for a while. But if you're looking at it and you're trying to find a useful function for an adult, you might say certain things about it that then get proved to be untrue as more things come together and you realize that actually that can't be what's going on. But I think it's really fascinating. I look forward to more research coming out. Leona, on the Egyptian Museum, it's going to be amazing. It does look like it's open. I'm not quite sure which bits are still closed, so worth keeping an eye. The website is very clearly saying everything's open and going. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on here. And Steve says that the museum atrium looks a bit like an art installation. It's the interior of the building is absolutely gorgeous. It's phenomenal. So yeah, I do look forward to checking it out if I ever get the chance to go over there. Stuart says, can you imagine 5 half airfix kits being a puzzle for future archaeologists? Absolutely, absolutely. There are so many things that it takes that kind of perspective to look at. Lily pointing out when archaeologists couldn't figure out why knives are stored in the ceiling until a woman said it's to keep the kids away from them. And it's those lived experiences that become quite universal. So yeah, interesting. So we have got some more stuff connected to this, but we're going to put this in updates. The Doge have visited the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. to talk about the museum's legal status. The National Gallery director, Kaywin Feldman, and General Counsel Luis Bacadano spoke with Doge representatives on April the 17th. This is a quotation from Feldman. As a public-private partnership, we have worked with every administration since our inception, and we will continue to work with the administration and Congress while we remain focused on fulfilling our mission to preserve and share artistic excellence with all Americans. This gallery was established in 1937. It's not a part of any government. It's not a branch of any government. It was built with funds from a financier. Congress covers the administrative and maintenance cost, which together account for roughly its 80% of its operating budget. It's not a federal museum, but despite this, earlier this year, the gallery did scrap its diversity program in the wake of the January 20th executive order. This article points out Doge's attempt to insert itself into the institution's business is the most recent in a number of efforts to expand its reach beyond federal agencies. Among those targeted by the organization are the congressionally funded independent nonprofit U.S. Institute of Peace, which in March accused Doge of breaking into its headquarters, and the private nonprofit Vera Institute of Justice, which last week issued a press release outlining the Musk-led group's effort to place a team within its ranks. In the previous administration in this country, I had grave concerns about the overreach of members of the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, because I had it on very good authority that members of that department and senior members of that department, and in particular those speaking on their behalf and with their authority, were in coded and not so coded terms actively threatening the budgets of multiple state-funded institutions, the heavy hitters of this country. If those museums did not toe the Britain is Great line across all their exhibitions, and things were stymied, warehoused, and reworded to fit with that agenda for fear of losing funding that essentially paid to keep the lights on and keep people in their jobs. There needs to be, in my opinion, autonomy when it comes to the way in which museums operate, in the same way that I think there needs to be autonomy in the way that healthcare professionals operate. Museums, libraries, educational establishments, when it comes to the way in which they disseminate their media, they should have the oversight of what happens there because they are the experts. When people who do not understand what is happening, but think because they are in charge of the budgets and they wrongly assume that because the person who pays the piper calls the tune is a saying, if the person who pays the piper doesn't know what a tune is, they should zip their lip. Zip it. And let the experts get on with doing it. I know it became very unfashionable to listen to experts across the world. That was something that was widely spoken about in certain publications and by governments. And there has been a diminishing of that feels purposeful because, of course, if you diminish the work of experts and the opinions of experts, and instead you listen to the people who have been supported, platformed, and funded by billionaires, guess what? Guess who that serves? It's not us. It's not us. Steve, yeah, look, public money spent in the UK, the political system believes they have oversight rights, and they do believe that. They do. And this is one of the reasons why what they were doing technically was not out of the bounds of what they should be doing. I think while it may have been in broad strokes legal, it was completely unethical, completely devoid of ethics, and as far as I'm concerned, utterly reprehensible. Let us hop into our repatriations, though. The Tate has returned a Henry Gibbs painting that was looted by the Nazis to the heirs of a Jewish art collector. This is Aeneas and his family fleeing burning Troy. It dates to 1654. The Spoliation Advisory Panel resolves the claims from people or their heirs who lost possession of cultural property during the Nazi era. And it's now held in national collections across the UK. A press release from the Tate said that it received a claim in May in 2024 from the heirs of the art collector Samuel Hartfeld. Quote, the Spoliation Advisory Panel considered all the evidence and decided that the legal and moral claims to the restitution of the painting were sufficiently compelling for them to advise the Secretary of State that the Sonia Klein Trust is entitled to its return. Tate director Maria Balshaw said in a statement that the provenance of Aeneas and his family fleeing burning Troy was, quote, extensively investigated when the painting was acquired in 1994, but, quote, crucial facts concerning previous ownership of the painting were not known. The trustees of the trust that got the painting back called the staff at Tate Britain open-minded and prompt in their approval of the Spoliation Advisory Panel recommendation to return the painting. And I wholeheartedly believe the words they're using there. And I think in some cases there does need to be benefit of the doubt, because while the members of the Third Reich were meticulous record keepers for everything they did, because everything they were doing at the time, let's remember, as we all know, was legal in Germany. Everything they did. There was a law for all of it. It was all legal. But when it came to the aftermath and the surrender, so many documents were burned, so many things were backstopped. So I think there's a potential here that even with the best will in the world, when it comes to a provenance hunt for items like this, unless a family is calling for repatriation and they have spoken about this painting, there is, I think, the potential that looting was hidden by people who were not the Tate, or even the person who donated it to the Tate. I'm prepared to give that good grace. In terms of what's going on with government funding, my husband did just text me with a correct statement that oversight is different to overreach, and a government funding an institution does have oversight, but that oversight should not allow them to overreach. They do not need to micromanage the experts. And that's the way I feel about it as well. A Greek vase loose in Italy has been removed from sale by a London gallery. A London antiquities dealer has withdrawn an ancient Greek amphora. This is the Kalos Gallery in Mayfair, London. They have removed this, made around 550 BCE from sale after it was contacted by an expert in the illegal trade of antiquities. Now, we've seen this gentleman before, Dr. Christos Tiriganis, who is the individual, the expert who worked with the Manhattan DA's office, who also called them out previously for not giving him proper credit because the research that he's doing, and he is a doctor, and so much of this relates to his doctoral research. Because of the work he's doing is now connected to criminal investigations from like the Manhattan DA's office. That, I believe, has prevented him fully publishing it because it is now legally sensitive material. But in turn, in the academic world, publication is king. And so him doing this really important work, which frankly is so integral to the appropriate functioning of museums, heritage sites, the trade in antiquities, etc. His work has been so vital in so much of what he's seen that he should, on that basis alone, have been offered tenure in about 50 different institutions as a mode of gratitude, because anybody to be taught by this individual and to lock him down as somebody who can teach you would be absolutely privileged. But I feel like there's been some problems with that because he's been unable to receive the full credit because of the necessary secrecy involved. But I do think that people in the DA's office and other places could have put a word in, if you know what I mean. Anyway, he spotted this amphora when the gallery offered it last month. It was he saw a photograph and he connected it to a photograph of a part of an archive that was seized, and it was on the website of the Italian Carabinieri. The value of this object is believed to be about £50,000, and he recognised this as being a stolen item. This scholar is currently an affiliated archaeology lecturer at the University of Cambridge. He heads the illicit antiquities trafficking research for the UNESCO Chair on Threats to Cultural Heritage at the Ionian University in Corfu. So he is certainly sitting in positions of power and getting those recognitions. But frankly, the work he's done, I want him to be heading up a department in a university as well. Maybe he's not got time. Over 19 years, he has identified more than 1,700 looted antiquities. He's alerted police. He's played a role in their repatriation to 15 countries. This includes a Greek bronze horse that Sotheby's in New York attempted to auction in 2018, until he notified authorities that it was connected to Robin Symes, who's a British antiquities dealer. He's been responsible for countless pieces being withdrawn from market or prevented from being transferred. And I think he certainly deserves much more credit than he is getting. The director of the Kalos Gallery said, quote, "We make every effort to do our due diligence and publish all collection and publication history known to us. The artwork in question has been immediately removed from sale, pending advice from relevant authorities. We have absolutely no interest in handling tainted artworks and welcome an opportunity to find practical and productive solutions to these complex issues." This is an interesting one because I don't really know what's happening here, but the MFA Boston has returned the Benin bronzes it was given to the donor of them because that donor is apparently opposed to their restitution. So they haven't repatriated them because the original donor is opposed. I'm assuming that as part of the donation agreement, a contract was drawn up that meant that these items couldn't be divested or repatriated, is what I'm guessing has happened. They are from the collection of Robert Owen Lehman Jr. He is the son of collector and former Lehman Brothers CEO Robert Owen Lehman Sr. He pledged in 2012 to give them to the museum over time. These works can be traced back to being looted by British soldiers in 1897. So I'm not quite sure why this happened. So 5 bronzes from the collection have passed into MFA's ownership. Several will go on display in the MFA's Art of Africa gallery in late June, while the museum continues to seek a resolution. The Benin Kingdom Gallery, which was going to have these bronzes in, is going to instead become a space for the collection of Nubian art to be displayed. All the works on loan to the MFA from Lehman will eventually be returned to him. So some pieces have been gifted, perhaps they can be repatriated, but the rest are on long-term temporary loan, and they have to go back because he won't repatriate them. Unclear as to why he won't repatriate them, as he's prepared to gift them, but apparently only to gift them to the MFA. Leona is suggesting me for the Prime Minister. I don't think they'd have me. I think I would be an entire problem. I have far too much. I don't have a cool enough head. And also, I am not a good liar. So I fear that I'm not made for life in politics. I would, to be honest, I would just spend all the money. I would not. Yeah, I would be a bad prime minister, because I'd be like, children are hungry, feed them. Don't care. Borrow money to feed the children. Borrow them. Don't care. Children need clothes. They've got good, attentive parents, but they need clothes and shoes and food through the Christmas holidays. Blah, blah, blah. Feed them. I don't borrow the money. I don't care. So that's why I certainly could not be the prime minister, because I would probably ruin the stock market in a hot minute. But children have carpet in their homes, and they'd have meals in their tummies. New news. We've got some dino news, because we haven't had that for a while. When Bonnie Prince Charlie, if you want to know some more stuff about the Jacobites, I've got a video on that. Check it out. When Bonnie Prince Charlie, who was one of the Jacobites, fled the Scottish Highlands after Culloden, we think his route might have crossed the fossilised footsteps of some massive meat-eating dinos. 131 fossilised footprints at the boulder-strewn shore have been analysed, and these animals made these tracks across the landscape 167 million years ago. It's suggested, because these tracks are overlapping, the Jamie's just gone, I love you, but please don't run for Prime Minister. I'm not even allowed to go up to school by myself, because I am prone to popping off. I can't. He has already told me I cannot be on the PTA because I am delusional, and I am also, when it comes to my kids, I'm feral. I'm fully feral. I can't be trusted. I can't be trusted not to pop off. There was one occasion where my husband went up to the daycare to talk to them, and his exact words was, I'm here as a favour. My wife wanted to come. Trust me, you don't want her to come. So I'm a liability. This is why I can't be Prime Minister. I can't even be on the PTA, because I can't be trusted. Because if a kid picks on my kid, I might fight their mum. I might just fight their mum. And that's not cool, guys. That's not cool. I'm not allowed to do that. So I have to stay home. seethe quietly and create voodoo dolls. Because I can't be trusted I can't be trusted to zip my lip. Can't be trusted. So I will fight people. I have anger management issues. Awkward. Anyway, back to the dinos. So these are the little pictures there are of these meat-eating. I say little. They are Miriam. I've seen Miriam Margolyes. Do you know what? I love Miriam Margolyes, and I aspire. She still has slightly less filter than me, because I manage when I'm on camera not to drop the C-bomb. I manage it, and frankly, where is my medal? Because sometimes it's the only word in my brain. I manage it though. But yeah, she's I think if she and I ever sat down, it would potentially be like a hadron collider of filth. I don't know if we'd ever recover. We'd probably both come out nuns. I think that would be it would be like two magnets. Just it would be a combustion, and we'd both come out pure as the driven. That's the only thing that could possibly happen. So we've got these dinos. They are meat-eating megalosaurs. The scientists used a drone to take thousands of photos, overlapping photos of the shoreline, and they then processed them to make 3D models of the footprints. These footprints were created as the dinosaurs ambled through the shallow water lagoon. Then over millions of years, they became preserved in the sandstone platform there. One of the researchers said, "It boggles my mind to think that when Bonnie Prince Charlie was being pursued by English troops, he might have been following the footprints of dinosaurs to safety on the Isle of Skye. He wouldn't know what a dinosaur was, as the word hadn't been invented then. And of course, he had many other more pressing things in his mind. But I do wonder if you looked down and saw these big holes in the rock with finger and toe impressions and wondered what they might be." That would be so fun. Another dinosaur one. And this, for those of you who don't know, this one is about my favourite class of dinosaur. Because I think we're back on me being unhinged. I love ankylosaurs. I think they're the greatest dinosaurs. They're underrated because what I like is they have a weaponized butt. They have got a tail with a club on it, and they're also armored. I enjoy that about them, that they can smack you upside the head with their butt. I love it. So that's why they're my favorite dinosaur. We have got footprints of armored dinosaurs with tail clubs have been identified for the first time. They were found in the Canadian Rockies. These particular ones, they don't have the really clubby tail. They're a different breed of ankylosaur. These are called tetrapodosaurs borealis. They have 4 toes, but these new tracks have only 3 that they found. So this is the first examples of ankylosaurid ankylosaur footprints anywhere in the world. So 3 toes. This is a new species that has now been named Ruopodosaurus clava, meaning the tumbled down lizard with the club mace. Fair enough. Somebody else who has the favourite dinosaur is the ankylosaur, because they're great. They're just great. Like T-Rex, I get it. It's in Jurassic Park. It's got little short arms. How funny. It'll bite your face off. And obviously, Brontosaurus, Brachiosaurus, big long necks. They're huge. I mean, a Triceratops. What's not to love? Big face. Great. Raptors. Squealy. Enjoyable. But when it comes to fun, violence, if you will, you can't be an ankylosaur. as far as I'm concerned. And this one, and now they've got 3-toed ones. Love it. So the quote is, it's really exciting to now know this research. There are 2 types of ankylosaurs that call this region home, and that Ruopodosaurus has only been identified in this part of Canada. This study also highlights how important the Peace region of northeastern British Columbia is for understanding the evolution of dinosaurs in North America. There's still lots more to be discovered. Okay, I'm going to ask a question, because I know I've got Canadian friends here, and I'm probably going to sound dumb. Also, Jamie, please key in. I remember watching Murdoch Mysteries, where he is in the Badlands of Canada dinosaur hunting. Is where this is talking about, the Peace region of northeastern British Columbia, is that near the Badlands? Is it part of the Badlands? And I've just seen T-Bean. Do you know what? Parasaurolophus, close second favourite, because I love the fact that it's got a mohawk that it's got a bone mohawk that makes loads of sound. Okay, right. Debbie, not even close. So there's not going to be a Murdoch Mysteries of this location. I love Murdoch Mysteries as well. I am a rambly rambler today. I apologise. We're gonna keep with dinosaurs. The Badlands is in Alberta, southern Alberta specifically. Oh yeah, I remember that now. He called it the Alberta Badlands. Apologies. Yeah, I remember that now. It was his little suit and his little hat. Alberta Badlands with his little chisel. Cute. More dinos, but also, as well as being dinos, we've got our League of Extraordinary Child Archaeologists. So, and on that note, a good tip: anyone with small dinosaur-loving children should check out Dinosaur Train. I don't know what that is, but I will. My son had a friend over, and they saw a BBC documentary on the iPlayer. Other streaming services are available, and it had dinosaurs on it. And he went, "Oh, can we watch this?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's watch it." So I turned it on, and it was like a CGI'd David Attenborough style documentary. In that, this was gory. They were like ripping each other's throats out and stuff. And my son was traumatized, but his mate was like, "This is brilliant." So my son was trying to act cool, and I swear he had nightmares for 3 days. So be careful. Vet your dinosaur stuff before you show it to your kids, because they might have nightmares. But I'm going to check out Dinosaur Train. This young man, a budding paleontologist, dug up fossils in his own garden dating back 140 million years. Little Elliot, who understandably looks pleased as punch, is only 7, God bless him. He moved into his new home in Matlock, Derbyshire 3 months ago. And when he was working, or other people I assume were working in the front garden, he dug out limestone rocks when they became exposed. He cracked them open and he found loads of Jurassic creatures, these fossils. How cool is this? They're beautiful as well. So all of those ones that you can see pictured there are absolutely amazing. So Matlock sits on rocks that used to be an ancient reef and has lots of its own fossils. But these fossils, it's thought, probably came from elsewhere by humans, either by collectors or builders who brought them from Dorset. Quote, "The joy of fossil hunting is finding something nobody else has found for millions of years. It gives you a view through all these years." So the scholar who looked into this advised that the beginner should take a guided tour to learn about the kinds of rocks to look out for, and the best time and place to spot them are from cliffs after a storm, because of course Dorset and the Jurassic coast are perfect places to go hunting, but do make sure that you don't damage the cliffs or yourselves while doing so. Well, see, Steve, it wasn't my son with his Timmy traits. He saw this image and went, "Oh, look, it's dinosaurs." And his friend went, "Oh, dinosaurs, let's watch it." And then I turned it on and the friend was like, "This is brilliant." And my son was like, "Why are they blooding?" "Mummy, why are they blooding?" And I'm like, because the big dinosaur is eating the baby dinosaur. And as my husband points out, my son now prefers the vegosaurs, who are they're vegetable dinosaurs, and that's much safer for him. So the Triceratops is a particular fave. He likes Triceratops, but he particularly enjoys the P Rexes. Can you guess? They are tiny T-Rex things, but they are, in fact, garden peas. So he's gone away from essentially hyper realistic bloodshed dinosaurs to vegosaurs. He's out of there. He's out of there. Early humans likely used dugout canoes to travel the open seas 8,500 years ago. If I mention canoes in front of my son, I will never hear the end of it. He's obsessed. He wants to go canoeing. Experts have had another skill set to at least one group of hunter-gatherers: paddling. Research now shows that some stalwart seafarers stroked their way from mainland Europe to the island of Malta, about 60 miles away. It's been hypothesized that canoeists tapped into sea currents and winds to propel them to their destination. They would have navigated using landmarks, maybe stars, because they almost would have certainly done part of their journey at night. Even on the longest day of the year, they would have had to travel several hours in darkness over open water, which makes me feel unwell. Good luck to them, but that makes me feel unwell. There is abundant evidence for a wide range of animal, including red deer, long thought to have gone extinct at this point in time. So they're hunting and cooking deer alongside tortoises and birds, some that were extremely large and now extinct. So all of these new finds about this, and now we also have these seafaring abilities. Quote, the results add 1,000 years to Maltese prehistory and force a re-evaluation of the seafaring abilities of Europe's last hunter-gatherers, as well as their connections and ecosystem impacts. Very, very interesting. And even though the thought about riding the seas in dark water makes me feel unwell, I think it's incredibly impressive. Obviously, do excuse me. I am going to this is not sponsored, but I've got a slightly spring has sprung, and thusly there is pollen in the air, which means that I have a sore throat. So I'm taking Vocal Zone. I love Vocal Zone. It is the only throat treat that I approve of. I use the honey and lemon one. I used to use the red one, but they do taste like bum. So I moved to honey and lemon because it's slightly less offensive of a taste, but they definitely work. A toddler, another League of Child Archaeologists, a toddler has discovered a 3,800-year-old Egyptian amulet while hiking with her family in Israel. And if we take a look at the amulet, I hope you can see it well enough in the picture. It's quite large. It's a Canaanite scarab dating to the Middle Bronze Age. The scarab's been handed over to the government. So it looked like a stone, and she just picked it up. And these sorts of things were normally found in graves, private homes. They would bear symbols and messages that reflect religious beliefs or status. The scarab is just one of many Egyptian Canaanite artifacts to be discovered at Tel Azekah, which attests to the close ties and cultural influences between Canaan and Egypt during that period. This item is going to be placed alongside other Egyptian and Canaanite artifacts, many of which have never been displayed before. There's an exhibition will include the seals of the pharaohs, Egyptian statues, ritual vessels, and other examples of Egypt's cultural influences on Israel. So this little girl could have just thought, I mean, my son, if given half a chance, will put any stone in his pocket. He won't even show it to you. His pocket, sometimes his mouth. This could have been lost because you pocket it. I've said to him numerous times, if a stone goes in my washing machine and I find it, I'm going to be furious. So this could have broken a washing machine as soon as it's been put in a museum. But here we go. And it's going to be on show to the public, which very, very good. Like it. And child archaeologists. Jamie, if you didn't know the vocal zone came in different flavours, yes, there's also a purple one. That could be blackcurrant. So there's the red one that just tastes of menthol and sadness. Very good though. Does kick sore throats in the bum. Lemon and honey, my preferred. I think there's a purple one that's blackcurrant. I don't particularly like blackcurrant. You could also, I swear I'm not sponsored by Vocal Zone, but you can also get teas of them as well. And they are chef's kiss delicious. House of Life School has been discovered in Luxor. A joint Egyptian-French archaeological mission has made a series of new discoveries at the mortuary temple of the pharaoh Ramses II. So, again, I'm just going to flag up that there's so many finds coming out of Egypt at the moment, and has been for the last, 4 or 5 years, maybe longer. And understandably, with the new museum opening, there's loads of money coming in. There's funding. The finds make loads of sense. I'm just going to flag that there are people questioning some of the rapidity with which these finds are being presented and described and named, and it's being asserted that this is this thing. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I'm not an archaeologist. I'm not an archaeological professional, but people are raising questions about some of the speed with which these items are being asserted to be things without a preponderance of doubt, shall we say. So the Ramesseum, known as the House of Millions of Years, was erected by Ramses on the Nile's west bank. They found there a series of tombs dating to the Third Intermediate Period, with burial chambers, shafts full of canopic jars, sarcophagi, and more than 400 funerary figurines. They found storerooms full of jars of honey, olive oil, animal fat, and wine, textile and stone workshops. They also found this so-called House of Life. It was a building attached to the temple where archaeologists found evidence of a school, including remnants of drawings and school toys and games. This is, we're told, the first physical evidence of an education centre within the Ramesseum, and the researchers were able to record its architectural layout in detail. So this is super interesting that we now know a little bit more about education, potentially, and how it was being conducted in this really important site. Leona, my brother's favourite for a washing machine growing up was worms, as mum hates them. Dear Lord, just the horror never abate. I currently have outside my front door a collection of sticks, a cornucopia of sticks, if you will. It looks like Stick of the Dump lives there. His pockets are full of stones, like he is trying to weigh himself down. Does he think he's about to take off like he's made of helium? And yesterday, he found a beautiful snail shell, snail-free. I think the snail had vacated the premises. And he bit it and broke a bit off. Slugs and snails are puppy dog tails. That's what's happening. No, if that child brings worms into my washing machine, I'm going to lose my marbles. That'll be it. That'll be it. I won't be able to deal with worms in the washing machine. I won't be able to deal with that. That'll be... Nope. We'll be getting a new washing machine. And we'll throw the whole machine away. Nope. Not at all. Not at all. The House of Millions of Years does sound very Game of Thrones. It also feels like it might be the place where you go to be to learn to be a man with no face. The faceless men. How I helped to discover a hidden Bronze Age monument. An archaeology enthusiast called George Bird had been dragging his friends to stone circles across the Peak Districts for years. George, if you've got to drag your friends to things, if you feel like you're dragging them, they're not really your friends. Your friend should want to join you on what my husband refers to as a death march through history. which is what happens when I take people to the Tower of London, because I will keep you there for 8 hours. He's like, I'm so tired. I need a pee and a drink. I'm like, you will keep moving. He refers to it as a death march through history. But it's not. It's a lovely time. So don't drag your friends. They should want to come with you. Curiosity about a single standing stone close to home has been credited with the discovery of a Bronze Age ceremonial site in Derbyshire dating back 3,700 years. This find, which is in Farleywood, which is apparently a real place, near Matlock, it was made after a 24-year-old student alerted Forestry England to what he thought might be a much bigger site. So he said he tried to send over a documented account of what he found in the area. This stone was 2 meters or 6'6" tall and previously believed to be an isolated monument. A few years later, George received the news that Time Team was going to visit the site. He said, I couldn't wait to get stuck in giving the team a hand with the excavation. It's just fantastic now finding out that all of this has been confirmed. Those peculiar rocks are in fact a larger monument. The lead historic environment officer for Forestry England said, quote, we were never going to do anything without George. It was his idea and he was part of the team as far as we were concerned. We knew that this stone was here. We had absolutely no idea the potential for the bigger monument, and we ended up discovering. It just goes to show the power of being inquisitive and asking questions. By George giving us the heads up and working with us to bring in Time Team and really get to the bottom of what's going on here, we're now able to manage the site as though it's a nationally protected monument. How cool is that? How cool is that? George does look very pleased with himself, and I think justifiably so. People have already seen this on Time Team. That's cool. How cool is it that he did this? Steve, your friend has done this for me too. You take her to see ships and submarines in return. We both gain interest and others' interest. I think that's so cool because there is something really lovely about somebody else, if they are truly passionate about something, being taken on a ride with them and just sort of giving in to their enthusiasm. And it might not be something that you seek out by yourself, but if you go and see or check out something with somebody who truly, truly loves it, then you find an appreciation for it. Look, before I met my husband, this is maybe unrelated, but I think potentially along the same lines, I had zero interest in sci-fi. Like, obviously, I'd watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer when I was a kid, but I didn't know anything about I've never seen Star Wars. I had no real interest in Star Trek, but being with my husband and him being a super sci-fi nerd geek, I got into it. And one of my favorite shows now is Battlestar Galactica, the new one. I really like that a lot. And I'm more interested in sci-fi. He's now kind of moved on to post-apocalyptic tragedies in his various TV watching. So I'm less involved with that because it makes me sad. He's now asked me if I'm going to start watching snooker. And my darling, I love you. I think snooker might be a bridge too far for me. That might be a bridge too far. Shane, my kids, I mean, Dominic's too small to really know anything about it, but Gabriel's favourite place on earth at the moment is Hampton Court Palace. It's and granted that may be in part because they've got an incredible playground that he loves, but he also wants to go around the kitchens. He wants to go in the Great Hall. He loves it. When I tell him we're going to Hampton Court Palace, he dances around as if I've told him we're going to soft play. That kid is going to be a history nerd. I'm going to make it happen. So I think we perhaps learnt about the earthquake in Myanmar, and there has been ruins that have emerged. I'm mostly concerned about everybody being safe and, you know, the potential for the upheaval that things like this cause, because it was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake, and it did result in massive loss of life, damage to infrastructure all across the country, including heritage sites. However, I suppose, silver lining to the horrible cloud of this is that it did unearth some long forgotten monuments and ancient ruins. Ruins that are thought to have been perhaps once a water palace or some water related structure, potentially one for royal ceremonies that were held by ancient kings. This has been found about 6.2 miles from the provincial capital of Mandalay. The ruins purportedly have foundational structures, stairways, traces of a pavilion that match illustrations recorded in ancient palm leaf manuscripts. The structure is expected to be excavated and preserved, with plans to make the site accessible for public education, according to the Department of Archaeology and the National Museum under the Ministry of Religious Affairs and Culture. Two near life-size sculptures have been found during excavations of a Pompeii tomb. Pompeii, every month, Pompeii is the gift that keeps giving. These are, look at them, aren't they fabulous? So they're almost life-size. A man and a woman, the woman's believed to be a priestess, have been found during excavations of a huge tomb. These are funerary relics that adorned a tomb containing several burial niches into a wide wall of the necropolis of Portosano. They think the female sculpture is of an important local woman, perhaps a priestess of Ceres, which is an ancient religion, a goddess of agriculture, fertility, and motherhood, because of the jewelry and accessories, including the earrings, rings, and bracelets that are carved into this sculpture. The woman is veiled, and she's also dressed in a large cloak over a tunic, while the man is wearing a toga wrapped over his left shoulder. Experts are not convinced the figures, which are joined together here, are believed to date to the late Roman period, represent a married couple. The director of the Pompeii Archaeological Park, Gabriel Zutrigel, said, quote, "Because she looks like a really important woman in the local elite, there's also this idea that she could have been a priestess of Ceres, holding these plants and what appears to be a papyrus roll. She's holding what appear to be laurel leaves used to purify and bless religious spaces. While most women in Roman society were relegated to domestic roles, being a priestess was the highest position a woman could aspire to, and it's on a similar level of power as for a male priest." Zutrigel said that such funerary sculptures do not always represent couples. Sometimes you get two men or they come in threes. This could be her husband, but it could also be her son. There is no inscription, so we don't know. At the feet of the male statue is the root of an ancient tree that grew on top of the tomb. It's quite a surprise to find it there a few centimetres beneath the ground. These sculptures are being restored and they're going to be displayed at an exhibition. In fact, they're already on display. The exhibition began on the 16th of April. The excavations at the Portosano necropolis are a joint project between the Pompeii Archaeological Park and the European University of Valencia. So more finds are going to be coming out, and of course I will update as and when we know more. Next up, we've got a pretty shiny. Ooh, it's a pretty shiny. Look at it. A 8th century brooch pin has been found during excavation work on Adair bypass. This is one of more than 100 objects that are going on display in the National Museum in May. This is County Limerick. It's been found, and it's a medieval brooch pin made of cast bronze, 12 centimetres in length, with blue glass settings and cast animal and abstract in its ornamentation. It was found by archaeologists working as this bypass is being created. This is going to go, the National Museum is in Kildare Street, Dublin, and it's part of an exhibition exploring the journeys of people, books, and ideas between medieval Ireland and Europe. The exhibition is called Words on the Wave, Ireland and St. Gallen in early medieval Europe. It's going to open on May the 29th. Quote, "The discovery of the brooch in a controlled excavation such as this provides a good basis for us to nail down exact dates when fine metal working was happening in Ireland, and more specifically in the Limerick area. This, we are told, shows significant skill, talent, and wealth there was in early medieval period in and around County Limerick. The National Museum is such an important institution for Ireland, housing artefacts of this nature and providing invaluable insight into Irish culture. Isn't it gorgeous? What an incredible piece. And more shinies, more medieval happy shinies. This is a sapphire ring. So that blue stone, that gorgeous blue stone, sapphire, surrounded by 2 emeralds, and the red stones are either rubies or garnets. This was found several years ago by a metal detectorist called Mark Snell, and searching for treasure in a field in north of England. He'd scanned the area before, but just before dusk, the detector emitted a faint signal. 9 inches below the surface was a gold ring with 5 gemstones. Dates to the late 12th, early 13th century, and likely belonged to a medieval bishop. When it went to auction, it was expected to fetch between $19,000 and $23,000. It sold, though, for $24,000 when it did, in fact, go to auction. It was found in the village of Shippendham, which was well established by the time of the Norman Conquest in 1066. This village has got a rich religious history. The Domesday Book states that Shippendham had a church and plentiful woodlands in the 11th century. This ring we see has got a principal cabochon stone or a rounded polished centered gem, which is a sapphire. And then the greens are 2 emeralds, and the other side are, as we said, garnets or ruby. The listing said it's extremely rare to find a ring of this kind with all of its original gemstones. The item resembles similar pieces belonging to other medieval religious leaders, such as large sapphire, ruby, and emerald ring that was owned by the 13th century Archbishop Walter de Grey. It was sold on the 26th of March in Noonan's, and I'm unclear as to who has purchased it. So if and when we find out, I will let you know, but it may well have made its way into a private collection where I hope it will be enjoyed and perhaps lent out every now and again. Jamie's lucky to live in a town in northeastern Scotland with a castle in it. In the 15th century, it was converted into a lighthouse by the Stevensons. You can tour the castle and the museum of the Scottish Lighthouse next door. How fabulous. How fabulous. Wheezy points out that whoever set those gemstones did a great job. They really did. Like, those settings are modern jewelers can learn a thing or two. I'm always on the TikTok seeing somebody who's lost an enormous, the Rock of Gibraltar out of their engagement ring because it wasn't properly secured. Medieval again. Last in England, a smashed medieval statue has been recreated. This 15th century statue was found smashed into 170 fragments behind a church wall that's been painstakingly pieced together using computer animation. I tell you what, that has got to be, if you love a jigsaw puzzle, my gosh, the job for you. This is a painted statue of the Mass of St. Gregory. It was found during restoration work in the 1970s behind a wall at St. Peter's Church in Shaftesbury. The Dorset County Museum teamed up with Bournemouth University to restore the statue, thought to be the last of its kind in England. Digitally, after fitting the fragments back together by hand, proved to be too challenging. Several months were taken, and they used visual effects software and thousands of images of the fragments to put it back together. The complete statue would have stood about 6 foot, so that's 1.8 meters high, and it was thought to be the only one of its kind in England. Many of the pieces are heavy and fragile. As they point out, it's been intriguing, but are also a very rewarding jigsaw puzzle. The largest statue pieces are on show at the museum alongside the digital reconstruction. Another 50 pieces are set to be made into 3D images for visitors to try and work out where they go via touchscreen. So if you go there, you could in fact have a go and doing your own part of the jigsaw, which would be fun. For those of you that would love to do this jigsaw, like Leona says, you'd love to do this jigsaw, well, you can go and have a go digitally if you go to this museum, to Dorset Museum, and check it out. Rare paintings found on a wall in Cumbria dating to the reign of Elizabeth I. You can see them at the top there, that fantastical images all around the place. This is a shining a light onto what the interior design taste of well-off Tudors might reveal to us. We've got here black and white paintings thought to date to the reign of Elizabeth I. And these are examples of how people with disposable incomes would have decorated their homes. It's described as, quote, an unnatural or unorderly composition for delight's sake of men, beasts, birds, fishes, flower, etc., without, as we say, rhyme or reason. Fair enough. This was found in this property in the 1970s, and more recent work has exposed further painting work as well. The paintings were of odd, grotesque beasts and apparently absolutely amazing foliage. They're all slightly out. They're not symmetrical. It's very freehand, and it's being described as being lovely. These are a rare discovery in Cumbria, but they're also nationally important. The combination of motifs discovered here is unusual even by national standards. This discovery provides remarkable insight into the evolution of a significant Tudor hunting lodge into a working farm. These paintings have been described as, quote, social history. They tell us an awful lot about people's tastes, attitudes, their ideologies, the way they use colour, or the way they use materials, the designs they chose. They tell us about their interests and how they wish to be seen by others. Historic England has said the main lodge building was already Grade 2 listed, but they now amend the list entry so that the wall paintings could be included under this protection. Some Shakespeare. We've got some Shakespeare happening. This find of an overlooked letter rewrites the history of Shakespeare's bad marriage. So a lot of weight is put on the assumption that because Shakespeare married young, potentially to an older woman who was already pregnant at the time they got married, because it's assumed that he left her behind in Stratford while he went swanning off to London to create Shakespeare in Love, the actual Elizabethan version. And finally, and most, I suppose, audaciously, it's assumed that because in his will he leaves her his second best bed, or their second best bed, that obviously he didn't love her, because why not leave her the best bed? So lots of interactions been done about what a second best bed might have been and how this shouldn't be read as him not liking her, etc., etc. So Shakespeare's 18 when he marries Anne Hathaway. She's in her mid-20s and she's pregnant. Shakespeare's wife has been viewed as a, quote, distant encumbrance, and there were scholars who thought, quote, Shakespeare is far too interesting to be a married guy. But new research says that this letter, this 17th century letter addressing a Mrs. Shakespeare, found in the binding of a book published in 1608, the letter's existence was apparently noted in 1978 by an amateur historian. He was working on a biography of Shakespeare when he learned of this 1978 find and was surprised it wasn't better known. If the letter was really addressed to the Mrs. Shakespeare rather than a lesser-known person with a similar name, it is self-evidently remarkable. It not only gives some previously unknown Shakespeare contacts, but also offers new clues about their relationship, even suggesting that for some time, Mrs. Shakespeare lived in London with her husband. If Hathaway did live in London, she was possibly back in Stratford by the time that she received the letter, likely around 1607. But of course, she also had a large household to maintain. In this paper that he proposes, quote, there is an obvious reason to avoid London in 1603-4, namely a very bad wave of plague. It would surely be a good time for her to be back in Stratford. And perhaps her movement should be reconsidered with an eye to her possible absences from London rather than her perpetual absence. In the note to Mrs. Shakespeare concerned money for a fatherless child named John, an apprentice, but not thought to be under the famous playwright. He had the last name Butt or Butts. It's called upon her to pay money that was most likely held in trust for him, a pledge that her husband may have undertaken and is now referred to a time when she dealt in Trinity Lane, which Mr. Stegel now believes to refer to a location in London. As for John Butts, the child in the letter, his name does appear in a 1607 register of an institution that disciplined disobedient apprentices, among other records, and Mr. Stegel said his surname did arise in Shakespeare's extended network. In the paper, we're told the stakes are high. This letter, if it belongs to them, offers a glimpse of the Shakespeares together in London, both involved in social networks and business matters, and, on the occasion of this request, presenting a united front against the importunate requests to help poor orphans. This 4-century-old letter is undermining long-held premises about the playwrights' lives. For Shakespeare biographers who favour the narrative of a disastrous marriage, and even those who don't, the document should be a horrible, difficult problem. I think it's very interesting. I wonder why she isn't made a shareholder, as so many wives, or rather widows, were. Or maybe she was involved in the business of the Globe and the Blackfriars. Perhaps she was. Marianne Young was not the norm except for the wealthy. Yeah, it certainly seems to be the case that for people who below the nobility, women tend to be younger than the men. So women will tend to be late teens, early 20s. Men will tend to be mid 20s to a little bit later, predominantly because an apprenticeship is 7 years and it tends to start around about when you're 14. So you've got to be, that's your apprenticeship, and then you've got to be a journeyman before you can become a master. A master has his own household, a master has his own journeyman and apprentices. So there is a progression of time that's going to take you to be established, stable, a person of your own means, so that you can take on a wife, a child, a family, etc. So that predicates later marriage. And on top of that, even in the nobility, apart from some very rare instances, even though they're marrying young, they aren't cohabiting. They aren't cohabiting until they're not cohabiting at 7. They are almost always, apart from in cases, really rare cases like Margaret Beaufort, they're cohabiting in their late teens to early 20s. What's odd about the Shakespeare situation is that he's younger than her, and also this is a grammar school boy who presumably, I mean, he's got to 18 and not gone to university, so something's potentially gone amiss. Obviously, his father has his legal and financial difficulties, but his marriage at 18 then prevents him from ever going to university because you're supposed to be unmarried to do that. So the white box that you can see there, that is covering a book that's bound in human skin. As we don't show human remains in this channel, I am not showing the book cover, but if you click on the link, you will see it. This is a book bound in the skin of one of the UK's most notorious murderers. This is understood to be the skin of William Corder. He is the person who was convicted in the Red Barn murder case of 1827. He is the individual who is accused and found guilty of killing Maria Martin. This book is going to go on display alongside similar items at Moy's Hall Museum in Bury St Edmunds, Suffolk. Terry Deary, who wrote Horrible Histories, does not like these books. He adds that they are books he would like to burn. I mean, I am an executed person's skin being used to cover a book. I mean, I'm not showing it on screen for a reason. This murder was utterly shocking in Georgian Britain. And there has been so much at the time, quite close to it. There was almost sort of merch created. I mean, now there's a name for stuff like this. It's called murderabilia. And it goes along the lines of people who want paintings created by John Wayne Gacy, or, bits of the car from Bonnie and Clyde, or, you name it. There are things connected to crimes and criminals that are marketable. And after the Red Barn murder, there were things like, I think, like sugar bowls created with it painted on. There were teapots of it. It's like it was to my mind, in very poor taste. It also became something that inspired songs and books and films. The story goes that Corder's having an affair with Mariah Martin. He said, "Meet me at the Red Barn, we're going to run away together." While there, he shot her and buried her in the barn. He was caught and then publicly executed. His body was dissected. His skin was used to bind a book telling of his trial. The book was then put on display in 1933. When curators were looking through the catalogue, they realised there was a second book that had been overlooked. It was donated decades ago by a family who had connections to the surgeon who had anatomized Corder. It was located in a bookshelf in the office next to other books bound in more traditional materials. Unlike the first Corder book, the skin that they have found is only on the book's binding and corners. The covering books in human skin does have a name. It is anthropodermic bibliopeggy. And books were often created in the 19th century to punish executed prisoners or by doctors who wanted a keepsake. Staff at the Moyes Hall said that the idea of destroying these books is not going to happen. They are going to be on display. They said, "We see human remains in every museum across the country. Questions whether we should or not is just because it's always there. Let's have a question." In his 11 years at the museum, he said there's not been a single complaint about the first book. There have been concerns raised about mummified cats being displayed as part of the witchcraft exhibit. If you do not tell people it's bound in human skin, I don't think you'd realise. It's rather humbling to have something like that in the collection. Look, I don't know what the answer is to human remains. I don't know what the answer is to tools of execution, death masks, murderabilia. I don't know what the answer is, but I think that it's long past time that we have a nuanced conversation with people who are experts in the field, what this might do to victims, their families, even if it's not the victims of those crimes, but victims of similar crimes, what it might do to the people who are looking at it. I want to know from, the best psychological minds that we have, what does it mean if, I don't know, an 8-year-old sees this or a 14-year-old sees this? What does it mean if we are showing them bodies on display or murder items on display? Does it have an effect? And if it does have an effect, what is the effect that it has? Onto a less corpsey note, a trapdoor opened, and thus we have 17th century frescoes, some of which are being shown on the screen now. Imagine mounting a scaffold, it says, in the atrium of a historic Roman estate. I mean, daily is the dream. You see a trapdoor in the vaulted ceiling. Upon inspection, the hatch opens into a cavity between the new ceiling and an older one. In the older ceiling is a second trapdoor. When you shine a light into the darkness, broad frescoes appear of cherubs floating amid rolling hills and thistledown clouds in a summery blue sky. And that is what happened. And look at the quality of these pieces. Look at how well maintained, presumably because they've not seen the light of day and they've not had people breathing near them or dusting around them, etc. Isn't it beautiful? So since 1944, this villa has been owned by the Accademia Nazionale delle Lincei. It's one of the oldest scientific institutions in the world. This villa itself was built between 1506 and 1510. It's got a U-shaped floor plan with open loggias, and it was thought to be an architectural marvel of its time. By the late 17th century, the vaulted loggia ceiling had fallen into disrepair and included loose areas of intonaco, which is the final smooth layer of the plaster used in the fresco painting becoming loose. Somebody was brought in to preserve the pictures in situ. In 1735, Elisabetta Farnese bequeathed Farnesina to Carlo IV, King of the Two Sicilies, and the villa became the residence of an array of Neapolitan ambassadors. In 1861, a 99-year lease was granted to the Spanish ambassador of Naples. What had been Shiggy's living room staircase was removed, and the current east wall was erected, so turning the space into a hallway. Moving on, in 1927, Benito Mussolini and his National Fascist Party, the state bought the villa from the Duke's heirs and made it the seat of the new Royal Academy in Italy. By the 1930s, the Pompeian room housed the seat of the Academy president, who was Guglielmo Marconi, the inventor of the radio. The fascists turned the hall into his executive ballroom, and Donato's frescoes became just one more ghost in the attic until now. And how fabulous. And I'm assuming that these things are going to be preserved and hopefully at some point shown to us. Yeah, it's amazing how vibrant they are, and I think that has to be down to the fact that they've just been shut away. Like no light's got to them, no sunlight has been able to degrade them. La Serena is a licensed mental health provider. You don't take one of the best, but thank you for sharing. There are conflicting opinions on the impact of extreme violence, gore, human remains on young people's development. I have no doubt. I mean, I also understand, of course, that the brain is still, our understanding of it is still in its infancy. We've still got so much to go. You follow up with it. Ultimately boils down to nature and nurture, as always. If there's an empathy deficit, a young person is more likely to fixate in a dangerous way, while another kid with empathy won't. And yeah, I suppose what I'm going to say is nobody is going to be harmed by not having torture devices, human remains, extreme gore shown to them. No one is going to be harmed by that not happening. And while not everybody will be harmed by it happening, a subset will, in ways that are potentially unweavable, if you will. Lily, are we talking about Margaret Beaufort? Yes. I spoke to my lovely friend and colleague Lauren Johnson about it. We were talking about confinement, and her book on Margaret Beaufort will be coming out later this year, and she and I will be talking about that. We'll be talking about the book. It's everything points to Margaret Beaufort being not just young for the time, but also underdeveloped for a 12 or 13-year-old. Not that many 12 or 13-year-olds are developed, but of course there are some. There are some 12 and 13-year-olds that are approaching what looks like physical maturity. That was also not the case for Margaret Beaufort. I mean, when I was speaking to Lauren, she talks about how Margaret's confessor says, look at Margaret Beaufort and how tiny she is as a grown woman. When she was pregnant with Henry, she was even smaller. And she was vehement that her granddaughter Margaret should not be sent up to Scotland too early for her marriage to the Scots king, because she couldn't trust that the cultural norms of allowing a young woman to develop would be permitted. And not only because it could do incredible damage, as it seems to me fairly evident that what happened to Margaret Beaufort is that the birth of Henry, and of course that's the only pregnancy she ever has, did something, I think, not only psychologically potentially, but certainly physical to her. There have been a suggestion that she lived the rest of her life with a prolapsed uterus, which would have just been unimaginably agonizing every single day of her life from that point onwards. But yeah, so she never had any more children. And yeah, just wild. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why when she Margaret Beaufort gets a really bad rap in historical fiction as being like this zealot, as being this schemer, as being sometimes this murderess. And I just think it's as wildly inappropriate as what used to be the traditional line on Catherine Howard, that she was a, in quotes, slut who deserved it. And fortunately, that line of discussion, that line of argument is being massively contradicted, rightly so. But I think it's also about time that we contradict the Margaret Beaufort narrative. Marianne, I hate to be the bearer of disgusting news, but my understanding, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, is that the youngest mother to ever come to term was, I believe, 6 when she fell pregnant. Italian is my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Titanic stuff. You can do scans, do you know, of the Titanic. You can do scans without having to get a submarine down there. Amazing, isn't it? A Titanic scan has revealed groundbreaking details about the ship's final hours. This is a 3D replica that shows, quote, the violence of how the ship ripped in two as it sank after hitting an iceberg in 1912. 1,500 people lost their lives in the disaster. The scan provides a new view of the boiler room, confirming eyewitness accounts that engineers worked right to the end to try and keep the ship's lights on. A computer simulation suggests that punctures in the hole the size of an A4 piece of paper led to the ship's demise. It's terrifying. They took more than 700,000 images from every angle to create this digital twin. The wreck is large. It lies in this the gloom of the sea. So exploring it with submersibles only shows these tantalizing snapshots. The scan, however, provides the first full view of the Titanic. The bow is lying upright on the seafloor. It looks as if the ship was continuing its voyage. 600 meters away, the stern is this heap of mangled metal. The damage was caused as it slammed to the sea when the ship broke in half. So you can sort of see all of these scan images on screen now. They refer to it as being like a crime scene. You see what the evidence is in the context of where it is. They've got close-up details, including a porthole that was most likely smashed by the iceberg. And this tallies with eyewitness reports of survivors that ice came into some people's cabins during the collision. Passengers said the lights were still on and the ship plunged beneath the waves, and the digital replica shows that some of the boilers are concave, which suggests they were still operating as they plunged into the ice water. On the deck of the stern, a valve has also been discovered in an open position, indicating that steam was still flowing into the electricity generating system. This would have been thanks to a team of engineers led by Joseph Bell, who stayed behind to shovel coal into the furnaces to keep the lights on. They all died in the disaster, but their heroic actions would have saved many lives. They kept the lights and power working to the end, which gave the crew time to launch the lifeboat safely with some light instead of in absolute darkness. They held the chaos at bay as long as possible. And all of that kind of symbolized by this open steam valve just sitting there in the stern. And what you can see I don't know if you can see it closely because it's quite small on screen, in that blue scan image, you can see this puckering, this thin line of multiple gashes throughout. The simulation calculates the iceberg's damage was spread across 6 compartments. The difference between the Titanic sinking and not sinking are down to the fine margins of holes about the size of a piece of paper. These small holes are across a long length of the ship, so the floodwater comes in slowly but surely into all of those holes, and then eventually the compartments are flooded over the top and the Titanic sinks. The damage cannot be seen on the scan as the lower section of the bow is hidden beneath the sediment. They can still see personal possessions from the ship's passengers across the sea floor. The scan is providing new clues about that cold night in 1912, but it's going to take experts years to scrutinise every detail of this replica. Park Stevenson said she's only giving us her stories a little bit at a time. Every time she leaves us wanting more. It is incredible because if you the abject horror of the amount of life that was lost on that night, and to think that it could potentially have been worse if they'd been trying to launch those lifeboats into the sea in the darkness. Unbelievable. A set of first editions of Shakespeare's plays could fetch $6 million at auction. So everybody get your pocket money together, because let's buy some, she says, having no money. This is a set of the 4 first editions of the collected works, expected to sell for up to £4.5 million or $6 million at auction next month. This is Sotheby's auction house. Sotheby's, London. They are going to be selling these on May 23rd. So time, friends, to gather those pennies together. This is the first folio, fully titled Mr. William Shakespeare's Comedies, Histories and Tragedies. It contains 36 plays, of which half are published there for the first time. About 750 copies of the first folio were printed in 1623, about 230 of which are known to survive. All but a few are in museums, universities, or libraries. One of the few first folios in private hands sold for $9.9 million at auction in 2020. This first folio proved successful enough that an updated version, the second folio, was published in 1632, a third in 1663, and a fourth in 1685. The first folio is regarded as the most valuable. The third is the rarest, with only 182 copies known to survive. It's believed the third book's rarity is because some of the stock was destroyed in the Great Fire of London in 1666. The third folio did, though, include 7 additional plays, but only one, which is Pericles, Prince of Tyre, is believed to be by Shakespeare. Well, look, as much as I would love to get my hands on the first folio, the as I've said before about these books like this coming into private hands, you've got to be richy rich, not just to buy it, but also to maintain it, because the requirements of climate control, fireproofing, bug proofing, all of that sort of stuff, all of that is probably over a lifetime going to be as much, so expensive to keep these things going. Back to the Titanic quickly. Confession time. You're related to people who were on the Titanic. What? Well, the thing that's not, the Titanic was sunk by a. I'm confused by that comment. So carrying on with some new news, Virginia institutions are facing uncertainty as the Trump admin suspends museum and library agency. This is the Institute Museum and Library Services is slated for shuttering by the Trump administration. Dispersed $6 million in grants to Virginia's organizations in 2024 that funded educational programs and historic records digitization. So this is just one example of what we should be looking at. This is a the Virginia example is, I think, potentially what could be happening elsewhere, because these funds would have been going to different locations, obviously. Find It Virginia is a platform that provides free education resources and tools for children, parents, military veterans, and English language learners. And it's one of several programs statewide whose funding could be gutted by the shuttering of this Federal Institute of Museum and Library Studies, the IMLS. This platform has connected military veterans to employment resources, provided tutoring services for children, and tools to learn languages, all for free. These resources would ordinarily cost individual libraries or even individuals a lot of money if they wanted access, are shared here as a resource with all public libraries. So I'm not sure if it's been confirmed that this is happening or if it's just a threat. So this Institute of Museum and Library Services is the primary source of federal support for the nation's museums and libraries, and it's one of the several entities that are due to be or included for elimination in the March 14th executive order. So this article, I haven't seen an update as to whether or not this has happened. But we have got a list of, just looking at Virginia alone, the 2024 grants from the Institute of Museum and Library Studies in Virginia alone. This is what they funded. They funded the Library of Virginia, over $4 million. The Virginia Polytechnic Institute, over $1,100,000. The $1,115,000. The Christiansburg Institute, $300,000. The Virginia Union University, $52,000. Children's Museum of Richmond, $188,000. The Virginia Museum of Contemporary Art, $32,000. The Virginia Polytechnic Institute, again, $100,000. $248,000 to the George Mason University, the University of Virginia, $149,000, Old Dominion University, $177,000, Library of Virginia, $172,000, all in all totaling to over $6 million going towards these library science and various things that are necessary that could potentially or may already have been divested and removed of funds. So if I get an update on what's happened there, I will of course let you know. Celtic Kitty, I have not done a Friday video on Margaret Beaufort, in part because I have known for a long time that my pal was working on a book about her. We've been talking about it for ages, so I always thought I'm going to keep that one in my back pocket because she is brilliant and an expert on it. So I've always been saving Margaret Beaufort so that I could talk to her about it. So that's the plan for that. How I thought about doing a video on Spring-Heeled Jack. Do you know what? I know of this tangentially, Spring-Heeled Jack, and the kind of rumours and myths around it, and I would be interested in looking into it. So yeah, I will have to do some in-depth research. So probably when the children are both in some form of childcare on a permanent basis, I can get into a library. But yeah, that sounds great. Lily points out that there's a note of hope. There's a lot of lawsuits over these funding cuts. The president doesn't get to decide spending in our system. That's Congress's job. Okay, so lawsuits. So let's see. This is another one that I'm not. I find weird as well because I don't know. I don't know enough about U.S. criminal law to know how weird this guilty verdict is. A climate activist who targeted the Degas sculpture has been found guilty of, quote, a crime against the United States. So Americans, how often is that a crime that gets charged and convicted? Is this something that is a common thing, being found guilty of a crime against the United States? And also, how does that is that treason? Is a crime against the United States treason? So a climate activist who smeared paint on the glass protecting the little dancer, aged 14, has been found guilty of a federal jury of conspiracy to commit an offence against the United States. Isn't an offence against the country? Isn't that not treason? What's the difference between an offence against the United States and treason? I wonder. So the US Department of Justice announced that Timothy Martin, 55, of Raleigh, North Carolina, was also found guilty of injury to a National Gallery of Art exhibit. That's a weird way of wording it as well, but I don't know if that's normal. Concerning the April 2023 incident in which he and a fellow activist, they're part of the Declare Emergency group, targeted the case and base of a little dancer, age 14. Per the DOJ, Martin and his companion caused more than $4,000 in damage. They forced the exhibit to close from public view for 10 days. So he pleaded guilty to causing injury to the gallery's exhibit. He was sentenced to 60 days in prison, followed by 24 months of supervised release. He was ordered to pay a $3,000 fine and $4,062 in restitution. But this has already happened. Since President Trump's come into office, the consequences for activism have been escalated. And a March 25 directive entitled Executive Order to Make DC Safe and Beautiful issued broad directives to rectify what the Trump administration has deemed issues of crime and aesthetics in the US Capitol, including the restoration of monuments, removing graffiti from public spaces, and the creation of the DC Safe and Beautiful Task Force, nominally charged with coordinating law enforcement efforts. I'm very confused by what this means. Does this mean, so he was sentenced to this one thing? It now sounds like he's been re-sentenced. Have I misread this? I'm very confused what this means. Because the crime against the United States thing seems like that's happened since the new administration's come into force. Have I misread that? In which case, what is going on there? Is that the point, to keep us wrong-footed because we don't know what the words mean? Is that the point? Is the point confusion and cruelty? Is that the point? Are they making things up as they go? Because look, right, here's the thing. So December 2023, he's pled guilty to injury to the gallery's exhibit. He's 6 days. He's been sentenced. So where's this new thing? Crime against the United States. Is that new? Okay, there seems to be a general consensus that confusion might be the point. I'm confused. I'm very confused. E.T., look, I would say, yeah, I understand that treason has specific points to be met, but my question is, what is the difference between treason and a crime against the United States? Like, how are those things? Because to me, those words mean the same thing. Unless I've completely misunderstood how treason is understood. Because if you did a crime against the United Kingdom, not a crime in the United Kingdom, but a crime against the United Kingdom, that would be the same as treason. Oh, okay. Lily's saying that treason's got a much more of a narrow definition in our laws. So a crime against the United States may not be treason. It doesn't sound good though. Continuing on, we've got 2 more bits of new news. So apparently you might get charged with a crime against the United States if you stole a bunch of government money. Okay. See, that would just be theft here. That's interesting. And it says treason is one of the crimes against the US. Okay. So Marianne says crime against the US includes treason, but also terrorism, drug and sex-related crimes, espionage, plus some others. Okay. So what one is vandalism? I mean, look, we've already talked about the fact that I don't know where I stand on climate activists defacing the casings around art and painting. I don't know where I stand on that, but I don't believe it's a crime against anybody's nation. Arguably, letting the world burn and keep fracking for oil is actually literally a crime against. Okay, do you know what? I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do that because I'll burst a blood vessel if I do. This also, confusion abounds once more. A Texas lawmaker has proposed a bill that could keep certain kinds of art off view. On March the 6th, Representative David Lowe filed House Bill 3958, which outlines a proposed civil penalty against any museum showing, quote, certain obscene or harmful material. The Texas Penal Code defines obscene as any kind of performance or material that depicts sexual acts without literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. So we're in the realms of Lady Chatterley's Lover. I don't know what pornography is, but I know when I see it. I can't tell you what it is, but I know if I see it. Okay, cool. If this bill passes, museums could be fined up to $500,000 per item and day that an obscene display remains on view. Those found in violation of the law could always be forced to pay injunctive relief and attorney's fees, as well as costs related to investigations and litigation. This is currently under review with the Committee on State Affairs. Lowe has explicitly mentioned a recent investigation into photographs by Sally Mann as an inspiration for his bill. The photographs were taken off of view after Texas politicians denounced them, with some labelling them as, quote, child. They call it the P word, but that's not a thing that exists. That would be, if they're calling it what they're calling it, that would be sexual abuse material, because the pictures feature nude children. Mann's photographs do not contain any sexual content, however, and the charges against the artist and the museum were ultimately dropped. This bill was introduced because the protection of children is paramount, and I'm committed to doing everything within my power to safeguard them. The situation involving actual nude photos of minors, not mere artistic depictions displayed at the Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth, spurred me into action. We must dedicate ourselves to protecting children from any institution might seek to harm or exploit them under the pretense of art, or indeed religion. Start with your churches. Start with your pastors. Start there. Sorry. Whew. Apologies. Last but by no means least, we move on to ding dongs, and I have put these next to ding dongs for a reason. The Trump administration has initiated the return of exhibits from the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture to their original owners, including the original 1960s Woolworths lunch counter. This is according to Black Press USA. The exhibit features sections of the original lunch counter where the sit-in protests began. This is where HBCU students were attacked after sitting at whites-only section and being denied service. Quote, this president is a master of distraction and destroying what it took 250 years to build. Here's another distraction in his quest for attention, another failure of his first 100 days. We're long past the time when you can erase history, anyone's history. You can take down exhibits, close buildings, shut down websites, ban books, and attempt to alter history, but we're long past that point. We will never forget. Trump attacked the museum, and this paper says that it's also often referred to as the Blacksonian. Is that true, or is that what this press is saying? After signing an executive order targeting the nation's parks and museums. Museums in our nation's capital should be places where individuals go to learn, not to be subjected to ideological indoctrination or divisive narratives that distort our shared history. Speak to your churches. Sorry. His viewpoints are supported by attorney Lindsay Halligan, who is consulting with Vice President J.D. Vance to remove improper ideology from Smithsonian properties and said the museum needs changing. The lunch counter is just one of several artifacts being returned. Long-standing civil rights leader and pastor, of course, of San Francisco's Third Baptist Church, Dr. Amos Brown, received a letter confirming the return of a Bible and George W. Williams' History of the Negro Race in America, one of the first books written on racism. So even the churchmen aren't, even churches are getting this stuff returned to them. These items have been displayed since museums opening in September 2016. Dr. Amos said that these items had sentimental value as the Bible once belonged to his father. The Bible, that's my father's Bible, and the Bible I use in the civil rights movement. When we went to demonstrations, we always had the Bible. Exhibit removals have sparked a firestorm of criticism among advocates fighting to preserve the museum as it was initially founded. Black churches across state lines have rallied against Trump's accusations of divisive race-centered ideology. The accusation is the confession. Sorry. Reverend Robert Turner of Empowerment Temple African Methodist Episcopal Church in Baltimore did the math and began asking members of his congregation for an extra offering to support museum preservation efforts. For only $25 a year, you can protect Black history. Jeez. So we're going to look at their comments, friends. I'll be honest. I mean, that's certainly how it looks. It's certainly how it looks. Anne points out, I need to point out that none of it's legal. Eventually, Congress and the Supreme Court will put it together. I hope so. I hope so. I mean, Bloford's got an update for us. The Smithsonian says the 1960s Woolworths lunch counter sitting exhibit at the National Museum of African American History and Culture will remain in place, according to reporter April Ryan. So they are presumably going against a directive to divest it. Yeah, Blowfield. Unfortunately, it doesn't let you post links in the chat, but if you email it to me, then I can include it in next month's as an update. On to ding-dongs. Dozens of ancient artifacts seized in a Greek island smuggling raid. Authorities in Greece arrested 6 people on Crete in connection with an alleged antiquity smuggling ring that was attempting to sell dozens of ancient artifacts. The arrest came after a sting operation on Wednesday, during which suspects were reported trying to sell a collection of antiquities. The group apparently operates as a coordinated criminal network with clearly defined roles, including a leader, go-betweens, and a designated transporter. The police confiscated metal detectors and scanning equipment believed to have been used to locate buried relics, as well as firearms, ammunition, quantities of cannabis, and more than €3,000, which is about $3,200 in cash. So, seemingly, this criminal gang had their fingers in many illegal pies. All 6 suspects are facing multiple charges, including membership in a criminal organisation and breaches of cultural heritage protection legislation. Wow. Okay. I mean, I didn't put the US stuff in ding dongs, principally because, as irritating as some of the ding dong stuff is, and as serious as the individual incidents may be, particularly with the destruction, either accidental or deliberate, of really important cultural stuff, as serious as they can be on that level, I didn't want to. There's something slightly tongue-in-cheek about having something titled Ding Dong, and those 4 news items that we looked at just before this, there is nothing for me that's tongue-in-cheek about the approach to that. So that's principally why I didn't put it there. Tiki, next month, just show a link of the US headlines affecting museums and libraries with links. As said earlier, it's not legal. It will be sorted out in the courts. I really hope so. I really hope so. My ideal situation is that next month, all of my news updates, I can just literally do a small thumbnail of the stuff we've talked about and just been like, this is sorted, this is sorted, this is sorted, and there's more stuff that's going to be sorted. That is my hope, and not just for museum stuff. Let's be clear, not just for museum stuff. I do have. I'm going to move on to something. Two of the next ones are lighter because they are literally about ding dongs. So we're going to accept that we're going to recognize that things are not great. We can recognize that. We can also recognize that allowing ourselves to get mired down in fatalism and fear, as valid as that is paralyzing. And maybe that's the point. Confusion, cruelty, and being paralyzed with anxiety and fear may well be the point. We cannot afford for that to happen. We have to be observant. We have to fight every little fire that gets set in the hopes of stopping a large-scale conflagration. And I'm not just talking about what's happening in the US, because this is a concerted effort on many political stages. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a breath. And now we're going to talk about some penises. Right? What we're going to do is we're going to stick a pin in that, and we're almost certainly going to come back to it next month. But now let's talk about some winkies. I've got 2 winkies stories. I haven't got 2 winkies. I grew 2 winkies, but I haven't got 2 winkies. But let's talk about some winkies. And TB, as Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers. And do you know what I noticed? And it's something that I experience where I live. We all moved in where I am now, like in COVID. All of my neighbours. And we are a community. We are friends. We look after each other's kids. We know each other's kids. Our kids are in and out of each other's houses. This East London is what East London looks like when you watch Call the Midwife, where everybody's kids are inside of each other's houses, where if somebody gets stuck at work, you go and pick somebody else's kid. We're on each other's approved pickup list for daycares and schools. Like, that is where I live. And there is a growing fostering of community. There is so much reason for hope, genuinely, because I think as much as there are consistent attempts to divide us by those for whom it is profitable to have us at odds, there has been a sea change in what people want and are prepared to accept. And the level of energy they're prepared to expend in certain directions. And because people, I think, are being more frugal in how they deploy their energy, it means that when things go really, for want of a better word or term, tits up, that energy can be redirected in powerful ways. So my message of hope is that I think that what we are living through, this sort of, I hope that this attempt at authoritarianism, what's actually happening is that we are seeing those kinds of ideologies. This is their extinction burst. And I hope that's what's going to happen. Samantha, it takes a village for real. It does. But you know what? It doesn't just take a village. It doesn't just take a village to raise kids, although that's really important to have a village, whether that's a village that you're related to or a village that you make. It doesn't just take a village to raise kids. It takes a village to be a person. It takes a village to be a person in a world where everything is so bright and loud and overstimulating, and it's really hard to pause for breath. Really hard. And you need a village. Wherever you find it, whether that's in your local area, whether that's in your family, friends from school, or digitally in community. We all just need to be able to just take a breath, take a pause, and sometimes laugh at some willies. So as serious as I believe things are, and as scary as stuff feels, let's giggle at some willies. Okay? With that being said, the Bio Tapestry's penis count remains a bone of contention. A bone of contention. May I just alert you to that headline? The penis count remains a bone of contention. Whoever wrote that headline, you knew what you were doing, and I appreciate it. So, the Bio Tapestry spans nearly 230 feet, but how many penises are there in those 230 feet? How many willies? And apparently, in 2018, University of Oxford professor George Garnett, because this is an Oxford issue, of course it is, said the number stands at 93 male genitalia. As Lucy Worsley pointed out on her social media, every schoolgirl is aware that there are whatever the number is, there are more penises than women on the Bio Tapestry. So, tapestry expert Christopher Monk believes that one more penis deserves some extra scrutiny. And that is a direct quote from this article. That's cool. In this case, a running soldier near the tapestry's lower border who features a notable accessory hanging beneath his tunic. Ding dong! Ding dong! Oh, Steve. Willie the Conqueror's on several pages! Lol! I'm in no doubt that the appendage is a depiction of male genitalia. The missed penis, shall we say, Mr. Monk, you are my new hero. Excellent. Garnett, however, is doubtful about Monk's evidence. He thinks that the mysterious shape is actually a scabbard and pointed to a gold orb that he believes is the pommel's brass cap. If you look at what are incontrovertibly penises in the tapestries, I cannot. This is not from April, is it? It is, but from April 25th. Okay. Garnett, this is a direct quote. If you look at what are incontrovertibly penises in the tapestries, none of them have a yellow blob on the end. Well, if you did, see a physician at once. Either way, one needs to examine the original embroidery still housed in Bio, France, to properly analyse the total penis count. An 18th century replica exists at the Reading Museum. Unfortunately, that era's social standards censored the penises, and it omits most of the genitalia. The question is, of course, why include the penises in the first place? Like their total count, the official explanation remains elusive. We know that medieval art is layered with symbolism from colours, flowers, animals, willies. The appendages might have been made to convey manliness and virility. The artwork's largest equine penis belongs to a horse gifted to Duke William preceding the Battle of Hastings, thus symbolising his right to the throne. Even his horse has a mighty ding-dong. Thus, he should be the chief ding-dong of all ding-dongs with a crown upon his head. David Musgrove said there are lots of interesting theories. We don't know really, to be honest, but it's very interesting that they're there. Very interesting that they're there. Look, is it a penis? Zoom, enhance. I can't zoom enhance on the screen, but you can. If you go to 33, you can zoom in on that wee willy winky to your very heart's desire. Lots of wee willy winkies joke. The reporter is actually a 12-year-old boy, or just a nearly 40-year-old female academic who finds willy jokes really funny. Really funny. Blowfield, from the things that my child already says, when he learns how funny a willy joke is, I'm done for. I'm gonna be we're gonna get so many calls from the school. It's because if you laugh when that child says something, it's like a drug to him. He's only 4, but if he says something slightly innuendo-y and you laugh, he wants to know why it's funny. You can't tell him all the time because it's dirty, but then he also repeats it a lot. Like when he heard in Bluey, they say to the bins, "See you next Tuesday." Bluey knows what it's doing with that one because Australians, as we all know, much like the English, absolutely love "See you next Tuesday." He has been saying that. "See you next Tuesday." As my husband talking about the Bio Tapestry, he spent a lot of time with ex-forces, and he's essentially saying that nothing changed. His direct quote is "Squaddies cocking standard," and by that he means that there was the soldiers we knew used to get a Sharpie marker, and if you left something around for long enough, including perhaps even your own face, they would draw a rudimentary penis and testicles upon it. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe what we're seeing here is a medieval version of modern squaddies doing a cocking. My cousin's in the house, and he is indeed a problem. Hi, Tim. How are you? We're talking about penises. Welcome to this particular nightmare of yours. You're very welcome. Because we've got some more penises. Let's have a look at this. Penises. A Roman. This is from Vindolanda, and they had some willies on the wall, and now they found a tiny willy. I don't think it's from a hen night, although it does look suspiciously like those willy straws, top of the willy straws you get for a hen do. They've uncovered a miniature phallus pendant. So a person was wearing this around their neck. Vindolanda was put up around AD 85 to AD 370. It's stone and timber forts built. It's still an active archaeological site, and there they've uncovered shoes, textiles, wooden artifacts, the Vindolanda tablets, the oldest surviving documents that are written in Roman Britain. Those are the Vindolanda tablets. But now they have found a phallus pendant made out of jet in a 4th century wall. Now, as we have been told, the Romans believed that the phallus was the embodiment of masculine generative power that provided protection, fertility, and good fortune. And so you do see willies all over the Roman world: sculptures, mosaics, frescoes, pendants, etc. We've all the things we see at the various sites, Pompeii, loads of wall paintings with willies all over them. This pendant is following on from a 2024 discovery at Vindolanda, where they found that phallus symbol carved onto a stone slab. We've talked about that previously. These 2025 excavations are a continuation of the research project that's going to be going on all the way into 2028, that focuses on the last remaining turfed area within the boundaries of the final stone fort constructed at Vindolanda. Timothy, I'll tell your mother. It has got a little hole at the tip because you've got to be able to string it on somehow. Wow, that sounds. Hey, we are where we are, aren't we? We are where we are. Do you know what, Shane? It's adorable. It's a lovely little willy. Isn't it cute? I don't think I'd be wearing it around my neck. It feels like a vibe that I'm not going for, but I can see how, in the right circumstances, crack on. We're going to move on now from penises. Yes, it's. We're not going to start doing bingo cards for these because we rarely get two Willy articles. We rarely get two Willy articles in a History News Live. So, and also, I am going to rein it back in because otherwise YouTube might ban me for life. Samantha, hilarious, but very naughty. Very naughty. Okay, let's look at some events and exhibitions that shouldn't involve any more willies. Okay, so the Hellenic National Archaeological Museum in Athens, Greece, is doing the Unseen Museum. It's presenting the Mycenaean alchemists. These are ceramic vessels which bear traces of tin coating on the surface. What they're aiming at doing is creating a look of kind of gold and silver. So essentially, they're trying to create an alchemical process on the surface of these artifacts. And this exhibition is going to be going on until May 26th. So you've got just under a month to go and check it out. It does look very interesting. So that's in Athens, Greece. Now, as with all of the times we talk about exhibitions, you're going to notice in the description box, you've got the exhibition link, so like tickets and stuff, and then there'll be set us in a little A, and that's for accessibility. So it's also a link to the accessibility information if that is something that you need to know about. We have got... No, that's not London, UK. I don't know why it says it's London, UK. It's absolutely not. This is Smithsonian, National Museum of African American History and Culture. I think I've put that on the wrong slide. But this is a exhibition that's happening on the concourse level, which is in the Bank of America's Special Exhibition Gallery. This is running until June the 8th, 2025. It opened December 13th, 2024. And this is an exhibition called In Slavery's Wake, Making Black Freedom in the World. I believe this is a free exhibition because it's on the concourse. I couldn't see a price, but there is as well a link to it and also to the accessibility information. We have Canberra, Australia, an exhibition on Pompeii running up until the 4th of May 2025. So we are in the very last window of this. You can, apparently, this exhibition, step inside Pompeii and discover life in the ancient city before the fateful eruption of Mount Vesuvius almost 2,000 years ago. This is described as an extraordinary, multi-sensory, immersive experience combining spectacular 360-degree recreation of the eruption with more than 90 objects from the ancient city. So if anybody's in Australia and gets a chance to see this, I'm very interested to see how they've put this exhibition together and what they mean by this description. So if you get a chance to have a look, let me know what you think. Maybe send me some pics of what you've seen. Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. This is Canada's first Black female artist being celebrated in a landmark museum show. These are the paintings of Edith MacDonald Brown. And this exhibition is running... Oh, it's just... I apologise. I thought that was later. It's just closed on April 26th. However, there are videos on the website still about the curator. I wonder as well if the exhibition guide might be available, and perhaps also there are things that you can check out from the exhibition having just happened. So I apologise. I thought that was still going to be running. I will be much clearer about checking when I put together the slideshows what date we'll be going out on this. We're coming up next. This one is still open. This is the University of Sydney, so again in Australia, the homecoming of some repatriated spears are forming the basis of this exhibition. And that exhibition closes on the 29th of June 2025. These are Mungari, and this is Fishing, Resistance and Return. March 2023, Trinity College, Cambridge returns the permanent repatriation of the spears from the Cambridge Museum of Archaeology to the Le Perouse Aboriginal community. So these are the spears that have now come back and they are on display. This, we're told, is a story of fishing, resistance and return, hundreds of years in the making. Quote, after 254 years, you came home. So, and the cost of this exhibition is, as we can see, free. Worcester, Massachusetts is the next and final one. This is From the Vault, collecting tapestries at the Worcester Art Museum. So we've got some absolutely beautiful examples of tapestries potentially on display here. Tapestries are a phenomenal piece of craft, and their sheer size and scale. Frequently, you know, we're talking floor to ceiling jobs. If you go around, for example, Hampton Court Palace, you will see them in all of their glory. So this is an exhibition delving into the histories of tapestries as an art form. It's looking at their methodologies of creation, the stories that are in them and how they came to this museum. So have a look at that if you are in Massachusetts, or you're going to be in Massachusetts before July 27th when this exhibition closes. So now then, that is what I have for you. Thank you all. We're not at 3 hours. It's a miracle. It's definitely not 1 hour either. So I'm going to stop. I am going to stop lying about that in the Friday videos, because we're never an hour long. Thank you so much for taking this time with me. Thank you for your patience with my soapbox ranting. Thank you for giggling along with me when I laughed at Willie's. Thank you, Timothy, for joining as well, and for mostly behaving yourself. Thanks for joining in with the smut as well, friends, and also with the seriousness. I want to also thank you for being a community for me and for each other, and for sending me these articles, but also for talking about them so caringly and incisively and interestingly here. Thank you for your time, your experience, your various forms of expertise. It really matters to me, and I look forward, hopefully, to having some better news for next month. I'm hoping that next month's news, all of the updates, are going to be exactly what we want them to be. That is the hope. In the meantime, thank you all for joining. If you're watching on the playback, thank you for giving up your time. Please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon. Also, do come over to my website and sign up for the mailing list, and that way I can send you out links to my content in case YouTube decides not to do so, because sometimes it doesn't. It's finicky in that respect. And I hope wherever you are on your Monday, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, if it's your birthday or soon to be your birthday, or it's just been your birthday, I hope you are going to have a wonderful rest of your day, and indeed a rest of your week. And I look forward to seeing you at the end of next month to have a chat about what's going on, and also hopefully to see you in the live chat of my Friday premiere, and having a chat there too. For now, take care of yourselves and have a brilliant rest of your week. It's from me, though. I'm going to say goodbye and see you soon.